Good evening. I will call this Thursday, January 30th, 2020 Comprehensive Plan Amendment Public Hearing to order. Before I get started with this evening's items of business, I do have a couple of memos to read into the record. The first is from our chairman, Les Miller. It was originally made out to the vice chair, Overman. It says, please be advised that due to a scheduling conflict, I will not be able to attend the Thursday, January 30th, 2020 Comprehensive Plan Amendments public hearing. Please read the reason for my absence into the records. Then Vice Chair Overman subsequently sent a memo to me that reads, Chaplain White, I will be unable to attend today's public hearing due to illness. Please read the reason for my absence into the record. I'll pass these down to the clerk's office staff to file. And I'll once again welcome you to this Comprehensive Plan Amendment public hearing. The Board of County Commissioners is holding a public hearing this evening for the consideration of the transmittal of an amendment to the future land use map of the Comprehensive Plan. This amendment is being considered for transmittal to the State Land Planning Agency and other agencies for review. This is the first of two public hearings required for adoption of the amendment. Before I hand this over to Planning Commission staff, though, I would like to turn to a representative from the County Attorney's Office, Ms. Johanna Lundgren, for an announcement.
Thank you. Wanted to announce that there is a policy that allows for the applicant to continue to future hearing date at which 6 or more commissioners are present in the event that you have 5 or fewer board members as you have tonight. So wanted to ask the applicant at this time if the applicant was planning to go forward this evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jake Kramer, 401 East Jackson Street with Stearns Weaver. Yes, we'd like to go ahead and proceed tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. We have one item on the agenda, item B1, which is CPA 19-08, and I'll hand it over to Planning Commission staff to introduce the item.
Thank you, Commissioner White. Tony Garcia, Planning Commission staff. Before you this evening is one item that you had mentioned, HCCPA 1908. We'll have a brief presentation by Ms. Krista Kelly. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Krista Kelly, Planning Commission staff. I'm presenting CPA 1908. This is a privately initiated map amendment. The site is located within the urban service area, also within the boundary of the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan. The site is on the north side of Lithia Pinecrest Road, west of Browning Road. This is an aerial of the site, and you can see it's the far southern boundary. This is Fishhawk Ranch, Fishhawk Trails subdivision. It's fringing on the boundary of the urban service area. This is the adopted future land use map. Currently, the site is designated public, quasi-public. This site was conveyed by to the school board for a school site at the time that Fishhawk Trails was approved, and the remaining of the property is designated Residential Plan 2 or RP2. Outside the urban service area, you'll see that the colors are a little off, but it's Residential 1 and then Agricultural 1 to 5. This is natural preservation up in the far corner. This is a kind of a zoomed out version of the same area, showing the site again, public, quasi-public. We did this to show that there is also property designated Residential 1 further, Residential 2, this bright yellow, as you extend towards the more within the urban service boundary. The proposed land use changes to Residential 2, and it's outlined in black. And again, it is surrounded by RP2, which shares the same density. Both densities are 2 units per acre. This amendment was distributed for agency comments. We received no objections from the responding agencies. The school district did point out that the site was considered a surplus site due to access concerns, its proximity with other schools. It was not in an area of highest need, and budgetary needs to surplus the property to increase capital was determined. The impact of this change from public quasi to residential 2, essentially it would introduce and allow for dwelling units up to 31 units. The public quasi-public would allow non-residential uses based on the surrounding land use categories. Residential 2 would allow a 0.25 FAR. However, the site does not meet locational criteria. Staff reviewed it for consistency and found that it is consistent with policies that direct growth within the urban growth areas as defined by the urban service area. It encourages growth concurrent in areas with urban services and promotes development that is compatible and comparable to the scale and character of the surrounding area. It is also consistent with those policies that call for infilling development, consistent with the surrounding area, and also provides for a gradual transition in densities and intensities with the adjacent areas. Based on these findings, the Planning Commission recommended that the proposed Plan Amendment 1908 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. I see no questions at this time. How many members of the applicant team do we have? 3 or 4?
Jake Kramer for the record, just myself and our planner Isabel Albert, and Mr. Fischbach is here as the applicant representative in case you have questions.
Okay, so you technically get 9 minutes. Looking out there, I don't think you're going to need it, but let's go ahead and queue him up for 9 minutes, and glad to hear your presentation.
Thank you, Commissioners. Again, Jake Kramer. Hopefully we can get out of here for an early dinner tonight. We have our land planner again, Isabel Albert, who'll present the technical details, as well as Mr. Fischbach, who's developing the property next door to the east, in case you have any questions about the big picture. This application is seeking a residential land use category for what's really an orphan parcel that can't be used for anything else at this stage. The school board surplused the property. One of the big reasons was because our school sites are getting larger and larger. I've been sitting in your workshops, and we've all been learning about this, and this site is simply too small. This property was always intended by the DRI to have residential use as a possibility, and Isabel will explain a little bit more about that. What happened was a number of school board sites were designated as public, quasi-public, and we're simply trying to go back to the residential use. There aren't any other possible uses for this site. We had discussions with Fishhawk. Mr. Fischbach has been working with Fishbach and their counsel, and we received no objections from them on this proposal. So with that, I'll turn it over to Isabel.
Thank you. Good evening, Isabel Albert, with 1000 North Ashley Street, and I'm here to have a little presentation very quickly, which is going to help to go forward. All right, so a little bit of history of the site. The site is located within Fishhawk, the DRI, and is also located within the urban service area. An elementary school was planned within the development for Fishhawk, but over the years, it was not exactly sure where they wanted to have this development. So you'll see those 3 images to the bottom have been just changes in the plan development to relocate the school as they further went along. The development order of the DRI, as well as the plan development, always envisioned this site if it was not going to be used by an elementary school, it could be converted to residential uses. So back in 1999, the school board purchased the site at the current location right now. And when they purchased it, it was RP2 like the remainder of Fishhawk. But then in 2012, Planning Commission staff, as part of a land use comprehensive study, looked at sites throughout Hillsborough County and identified some sites that were for schools and did the land use amendment to quasi-public, quasi-public. Even though the plan development and the DRI still allowed that residential use. So took a look at this, and then we wanted to return it back to Res 2 in order to develop it with the project to the east. And as you know, this project to the east has a plan development for half-acre lots, 2 units to the acre. And this site, when Mr. Reed Fishbach purchased the site, thought it would be a good idea to incorporate it with this existing development. And then this is also through discussions with the Fishhawk development that they preferred it to be incorporated with the development to the east. And so this is why we're here today, and I'm here if you have any questions.
I see no questions. Okay. So this is a public hearing. Do we have any members of the public that would like to speak to this item? Okay, seeing none, there's no need for applicant rebuttal. I'll close the public hearing, and seeing no board discussion. Oh, Commissioner Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you. So Lithia Pinecrest is an overcrowded road with a level of service F. And the curve where this is a particularly bad piece. In fact, that was a contributing factor in the school board determining that it was not a good site anymore for a school. A contributing factor. The applicant's other parcel across the street outside the urban service area will be contributing to the traffic problem. And a lot of citizens opposed that at the time because of that. So I won't be able to support moving it forward, mainly for that. I would also point out that as Fishhawk DRI was developed, zoning through several rezonings, there was a condition constantly reiterated that said this site was supposed to be a school, but if it was not going to develop as a school, it could have residential development only if the total number of residents didn't increase for the whole Fishhawk. Then Fishhawk was built out. It was declared essentially built out with this remaining public, quasi-public, with no more entitlements to it. So in my mind, the residential density that was allotted to Fishhawk was allotted to it without this land piece. It's up to us whether we put more on it at this time, but to me, at this time, given the pressure that will come from the other side, given Lithia Pinecrest being a level of service F, I don't see it as a good idea to increase traffic on the road.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Smith. Seeing no further board discussion, I will entertain a motion and vote on a resolution for transmittal of the above amendment. We have a motion by Commissioner Merman. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Hagan. Seeing no further discussion, please record your votes.
Motion carried 3-2. Commissioners Kemp and Smith voted no.
The motion actually, although the motion did pass 3-2, this requires a vote of 4 commissioners in order to adopt a resolution pursuant to the board's policies. A resolution requires 4 affirmative votes, and transmittal requires a resolution.
Okay, so Commissioner Hagan, I'll recognize you perhaps for a motion.
Do we have the ability to continue?
Yes, you can continue the hearing if you'd like to reconsider the prior action.
Does that require a majority of the members present?
It requires a majority of the members present in order to continue, yes.
Okay.
How about reconsideration?
Yeah, there's a motion to reconsider
to
the
reconsider.
resolution by Commissioner Hagan. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Merman. Commissioner Merman, you're in the queue. Any discussion? No. On the motion on the floor?
No, I was going to take the same action,
Okay.
so we could bring this back when we have a full board.
All right. Seeing no discussion on the motion on the floor, which is to reconsider, please record your vote.
March 26th is the day, right?
Motion carried 3-2.
Okay, so technically that leaves us with, again, the motion to adopt this resolution on the floor. So what I'd like to have is a substitute motion perhaps to continue this.
I'll make the motion to continue or substitute whatever the appropriate motion is
Okay.
necessary.
Commissioner Hagan moves to continue. Commissioner Merman seconds. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, please record your votes.
We do need to state the date for that
Okay.
continuance, and that would be March 26th at 6 p.m.
Okay, the motion is to continue to March 26th at 6 p.m. That motion was made by Commissioner Hagan, seconded by Commissioner Merman. Seeing no discussion, please record your votes.
Motion carried 3-2. Commissioners Kemp and Smith voted no.
Okay, we have the hearing continued to March 26th. Is there anything else to come before the board? Seeing no further business, this meeting's adjourned.